On this section, we're going to be looking at translating verbal phrases. We did some of these earlier, and the ones that we're doing here are geared more towards what you'll be seeing in sections 4.1 and 4.2. So the first thing you're going to do is we're looking at when they tell you, give you a phrase, how do we interpret that mathematically? And so our first example is to translate the phrase, let n represent the value or values, and it says fewer than two people. So the first thing you ask yourself when you're looking at the problem, fewer than means less than. That's the mathematical symbol, less than. But so we could say n is less than 2. But we're talking about the number of people. So if I said that n is less than 2, and that's how I left it, then that would say that n could be 1.5 because 1.5 is less than 2, but you can't have a part of a person. So that means your answers must be whole numbers. So instead of interpreting this as n is less than 2, we're looking at, okay, if we're counting people and there are fewer than 2 people, what are we talking about? We're saying that there could be 0 people, would be fewer than 2 people. 1 person would be fewer than 2 people. So n could either equal 0 or 1 and be fewer than 2 people. So instead of writing our answers as an inequality, like we did in some of the earlier sections, we're looking at the fact that we're talking about the number of people. So we're actually going to list out individual numbers. We're not going to say n is less than 2. So using that same thought process on number 2, we want to let n represent the value of at least 3 men are in a room, and then it says there are 7 people in the room. So if we say at least 3 men, the phrase at least means that number or more. So greater than or equal to. So at least greater than or equal to 3. So that means there could be 3 people in the room, or there could be 4 people, or 5, or 6, or 7. And we stop when we get to 7 because it says there's only 7 people in the room. So obviously we cannot go above 7. So at least 3 men in the room would be 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 men. The next example, the number of tables that are occupied is between 2 and 6. Again, you're not going to have a part of a table, so we're only looking at whole numbers. And between 2 and 6 means that you are strictly between them. So if you say between 2 and 6, you're not including the 2 and the 6. Between means greater than 2, less than 6. So that means it could be 3, 4, or 5. That would be between 2 and 6. The next one, 2 people or less. So that means we could have 2 people, or less than 2 people would be 1 person or 0 people. And then obviously we can't go below 0 because it would be negative. So 2 people or less means we could have anything 0, 1, or 2. There could be 0 people, 1 person, or 2 people. Number 5, 2 people or more. So 2 people or more says that we can start with 2 people, or we could have 3 or 4 or 5. And since they didn't give us an endpoint on that, or a maximum number of people, then we would just put ... showing that it continues to go on. Example 6, at most 2 athletes. Again, we're counting people, so these are whole numbers. At most means that's the most it can be, which is the same as less than or equal to. At most is less than or equal to. So that means we could have 0, 1, or 2, but 2's the most that we could have. Okay, down here, more of the same. We're just using n still. 3 books or less. So we could have 0, 1, 2, or 3 books. The ages of the children are between 4 and 9. So the children could be 5, 6, 7, or 8. At least 3 women are in the room, and there are 6 people total. So at least 3 means 3 or more. So we could have 3, 4, 5, or 6. We have to stop at 6 because that's all the people in the room. More than 5 dogs in the park, and there's a total of 8 dogs, or there are 8 dogs in the park. So more than 5 dogs in the park would be, more than 5 would be 6, 7, or 8. At most means that's the highest the number can be, so it can be that number or anything below that number. And it says at most 5 ingredients, so obviously you probably wouldn't have 0 ingredients because it wouldn't be a recipe, but we're doing this based on our method we've been using, so we could have 0 up to 5. And then at least 4 choices, and you've got 7 choices available. So at least 4 means that number or more. So 4, 5, 6, up to 7. So a couple of things you're going to be looking at. Fewer than, already pointed out earlier, means less than. More than, obviously means greater than. At least means that number or more, so greater than, equal to. At most means that number or fewer, which would be less than or equal to. So those are just some of the key phrases you would look for to see if you're using the numbers above or below the given number, and whether or not you're including that number.